Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of Take a Wild Guess, the show where I tell you the story of an object, a place, a historical event, or a name, and you guess what I'm talking about. Today's episode is called There's Always Room for Dessert. This is another story about food. We are talking about a certain dessert that is popular all over the world, including in India, which some claim was invented by a certain Miss M. Roberts. Do you know what I'm talking about? If not, listen on. Maybe you will figure it out by the end of today's story. And even if you don't, you can always take a wild guess. So let's begin. Now let's begin it with a confession. I love food. That is why our first ever episode was about. Sorry, I didn't want to give away a spoiler. But I do recommend listeners to check out episode number 1, Food That Shaped the World as We Know It. I have added the link in the show's description. Anyway, I specifically love sweet food. So I figured that the next food related story should be about a dessert. The origin of this dessert is contested. The most accepted version is that it was independently developed by two different people around the same time. One was Tom Carvel, a small local restaurateur from New York, and the other was J.F. McCullough. But Chaitanya, what about Miss M. Roberts, the woman you talked about in the beginning of the episode? Oh, trust me, I haven't forgotten. We will come to that story in a bit. Now, Carvel's story is that of an accidental discovery. In 1926, on Memorial Day, which is a holiday in the US, Carvel was carrying a certain product in his truck. It was at this time that it suffered a flat tire, which means it punctured. He worried that the product he was carrying will get spoiled in the summer heat because it contained milk. So he parked his truck in a parking lot and started selling a makeshift dessert to the passing vacationers. To his surprise, he sold the entire stock within a short time. He realized the potential for this new dessert, developed a new recipe, and patented a machine to make it. He opened his first store in the exact same place where his truck had broken down. The characteristic of this recipe is that it incorporated a lot of air in the dessert. This part is important, okay? Remember it. Another peculiar thing about this dessert is that the freezing step is done at the point of sale, which means that it is done just before serving it to the end customer. This was possible using Carvel's machine. Now let's talk about this other dodgy origin story. In the late 1940s, Miss Roberts graduated from Oxford and worked at a British company called J. Lyons and Company as a chemist. Though her exact role is not known, she is said to have worked on quality control for cakes, ice creams, pie fillings, among other things. Incidentally, this was also the same time when Lyons entered a partnership with a US-based company that sold this dessert. So obviously this can't be the origin story, as it was around 25 years after Carvel and Lyons was literally partnering with a company that was already making this product. So then why is this myth so popular? Now there are various versions of the why, none of which can be considered conclusive, but I will tell you the one that I thought was the most plausible. You see, Miss Roberts wasn't just a chemist, she was also a politician and a member of the Conservative Party. As such, she and many of her policies were often criticized by the left wing. One of their criticisms was using this dessert as a metaphor for her policies. Now remember the part that I told you about air being incorporated in the dessert? So obviously the more air that is added to the dessert, the more it expands and the more profitable it is on a volume by volume or a per liter basis. So the metaphor went that her policies were like this product. They added air, lowered quality, and raised profits. So in a way, the association came first and the origin story came later to somehow justify this association. This is also ironic because she was also one of the major sponsors of a legislation to eliminate the free milk program. This was a program which was started during the wartime to ensure that school children and pregnant women received milk for free and thus didn't get malnourished. But I digress. Today, this product is super popular across the world. Because the freezing step is done at the very end, it has allowed store owners to customize the product at the store level, leading to thousands of flavors, including many weird ones like bacon and soya, etc. The product is most closely associated with amusement parks, fairs, festivals, and oh yes, McDonald's fast food joints. Do you know what I'm talking about? Even if you don't, take a wild guess. The dessert, of course, is soft serve ice cream, or softy as it is called in India. And yes, if you haven't figured it out already, Miss M. Roberts, after her marriage, was known as Mrs. Margaret Thatcher. That brings us to the end of today's story. If you liked this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends. If you have any comments, criticisms, or feedback, please write to me at tawgpodcast@gmail.com or message me on our Instagram handle. Till next time, I'm your host Chaitanya Ganu and this is Take a Wild Guess. Thank you.